Beneath the endless sky, there has always been a line where sight stops and imagination begins. Long before telescopes and equations, our ancestors stood at the edge of the sea, staring at the horizon as if it were the rim of existence. The water stretched flat and featureless, and they wondered what lay beyond that distant line. Perhaps a cliff where the world fell into darkness, perhaps monsters that guarded the final boundary. Every shore felt like the edge of the known world. When night came, they looked up and saw another horizon, an arch of stars rising and sinking. The heavens appeared as a great dome above a flat earth, and the stars seemed fixed like lanterns on its inner shell. The moon passed through phases like a mysterious clock, and the sun appeared to dive behind the world's rim each evening. If you had asked one of those early watchers what lay beyond the sky, they would have spoken of gods, spirits, or nothingness itself. They imagined a world bounded, contained within a cosmic wall. But the boundaries kept breaking. The line at the ocean's edge proved to be only the limit of sight. Ships pushed across it, and there was more ocean, and then new lands, and then another horizon. The dome of the sky turned out to be no shell at all. The earth itself was round and floating in a vast void. The edges we thought were final dissolved as we reached them, yet the impulse to find a border never faded. It merely shifted outward. Today we peer far beyond the horizon our ancestors knew. We build telescopes that can capture the faintest glimmers of galaxies so distant their light began its journey before the Earth existed. We map the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, and treat it as if it were the farthest wall of the universe. We speak of the observable universe as though it were a sphere with a measurable radius, roughly 46 billion light-years in all directions. But if you could somehow fly to that distant edge and look beyond it, there would be no cliff, no wall, no curtain you could pierce. This is the paradox that unsettles our sense of place. We can measure a distance to the farthest things we can see. Yet there is no edge there. Space does not end where our vision stops. It simply extends beyond the reach of light that has had time to arrive. The observable universe is a horizon, not a boundary. It is like standing on the deck of a ship in the middle of the sea. Everywhere you look, the world ends in a circle of blue, but that circle recedes as you move forward. The true ocean is wider than any sailor can ever see at once. Still, the question persists. If there is no edge, what lies beyond the sphere we can observe? Our language almost forces us to imagine space as something sitting inside a larger container, like a soap bubble surrounded by air. We talk of the universe expanding, and the mind pictures it swelling into something, as if there must be an outside into which it grows. But that mental picture is a trap. According to the best cosmological models, space itself is the arena. It does not sit inside a higher dimensional box. Asking what lies beyond space is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The question reveals the limits of our intuition more than it reveals a hidden region. And yet, even knowing this, we can't help but ask. Perhaps it is because our lives are bounded by our skin, our homes, the span of our days. We have evolved to navigate a world of borders, shorelines, mountains, horizons. To live without edges is alien to us. The thought that the universe may have no outside, no final wall to press our palms against, stirs both awe and unease. If there is no edge, there is no beyond. and yet the word beyond lingers on our tongues, as if refusing to vanish. There is a peculiar wonder in realizing that what we see, the stars whose light we capture, the galaxies whose spirals we resolve, makes up only a finite patch of a potentially infinite whole. Beyond that patch may lie more galaxies, perhaps unending, perhaps curled back in ways our minds struggle to picture. We do not know, and that unknowing keeps us restless. We chart the observable universe as our ancestors once drew maps of the known world, marking the boundaries of what we can see, even though we suspect the real territory is far larger. The ancient sailors, pushing past the edge of their maps, were driven not only by curiosity, but also by a mixture of fear and hope. What lay beyond could destroy them, or it could enrich them with new worlds. Our exploration of cosmic horizons is driven by the same dual force. We fear the idea of a universe that stretches endlessly, indifferent to our smallness. We hope that by seeking its limits we will find meaning, perhaps even discover that the universe has a story with a beginning and an end. That hope often centers on the Big Bang. We imagine the moment of origin as if it were an explosion in a dark void, a fireball expanding into surrounding emptiness. But that picture, too, is misleading. The Big Bang was not a burst inside space. It was the rapid stretching of space itself. There was no outer darkness into which it spread. There was only space, tiny at first, growing larger. There was no beyond. This realization leaves us standing on a strange kind of shore. The horizon we see is not the edge of existence, but the limit of time's reach. We are gazing not at the boundary of space, but at the farthest distance light has been able to travel since the beginning. And yet, like the sailors of old, we feel as though there must be more waiting past that horizon. We live with the tension between what our eyes can show us and what our minds can imagine. On clear nights, when we see the soft glow of the Milky Way smeared across the sky, we feel as though we are peering into an infinite ocean of stars. But even then, we are seeing only a shallow tide pool compared to the cosmic depths that lie beyond our reach. We long for a map that shows the entire ocean, every shore and island, but we may never have such a map. The universe, or the fabric of reality itself, may be without border or outside. This is the mystery we inherit from the horizon gazers of the past. Our maps have grown vast, our measurements precise, yet we remain creatures haunted by the idea of an edge. We have not shed the ancient yearning to stand at the final boundary and look past it. The cosmos has answered us with a paradox. We can measure a horizon, but not a wall. We can imagine a beyond, but never arrive at it. We will go on seeking, because that is what it means to be human. But in that seeking, we must face the unsettling truth that space itself offers no outside to discover. If the universe has no edge, then what lies beyond it is not a place, but a question that keeps our eyes turned upward, and our minds reaching outward, into the dark. Imagine standing in a pitch black field with a single lantern in your hand. Its glow reaches only a short distance before fading into the darkness. All you can see is the circle of grass within that fragile light. Beyond it may lie forests, mountains, oceans, or nothing at all. But your eyes cannot tell you. The circle of illumination is not the end of the field. It is only the edge of what your light can reveal. Our entire cosmic knowledge is like that lantern. The observable universe is the small sphere lit by ancient light, while the rest of reality lies hidden in the dark. We often speak as though the universe itself is only as large as what we can see. Yet, the observable universe is not a container of everything that exists. It is a horizon defined by the distance that light has had time to travel since the Big Bang. That horizon is about 46 billion light-years away in every direction, so the observable cosmos spans roughly 93 billion light-years across. Beyond that, the universe may continue, endlessly, unimaginably. But no light from those farther regions has had time to reach us. Our sight is limited not by the size of the universe, but by the age of the universe. This idea is deceptively subtle. When we picture the edge of what we can observe, our minds often imagine a physical shell, like the wall of an enormous bubble enclosing us. In truth, there is no such wall. The limit is a moment in time, a curtain made of distance and history. Light has a finite speed, about 300,000 kilometers per second, and the universe has a finite age, about 13.8 billion years. We can never see farther than the distance light has traveled since the beginning, no matter how powerful our telescopes become. We are peering not across space, but back into time. But here lies the first paradox. If the universe is 13.8 billion years old, why is the radius of the observable universe 46 billion light-years, more than 3 times larger than the distance light should have been able to cover? The answer lies in the dynamism of the cosmos itself. Space is not a static stage on which galaxies move. It is a fabric that stretches and expands. As the universe grew over billions of years, the very space between us and distant galaxies expanded, carrying those galaxies away and stretching the light waves en route. That means the light we see today from the most distant galaxies began its journey when they were far closer, but by the time it arrived, the universe had grown enormously. The galaxies themselves are now far beyond the distance that light could have traveled at a constant scale. This stretching of the cosmic fabric enlarges our observable sphere. To comprehend this, cosmologists use a mental image, dots on the surface of an inflating balloon. As the balloon expands, every dot sees all the other dots receding from it. There is no central point of expansion in the two-dimensional surface, and there is no edge to the surface itself, only more surface. Similarly, in 3 dimensions, the expansion of space causes galaxies to recede from each other not because they are flying through space, but because the space between them is stretching. This expansion also leads to another astonishing realization. Distant regions of the universe recede from us faster than the speed of light. This is not a violation of physics, because it is not the galaxies themselves breaking the cosmic speed limit. It is the fabric of space between us and them that is stretching. At great enough distances, the recession rate surpasses light's type speed. And so any light emitted there today will never reach us. The expansion is carrying that light away faster than it can approach. Beyond a certain limit, the universe is forever hidden. This reality confines us inside a kind of cosmic bubble, the observable universe. The galaxies we can see now are those from which light has had time to cross the expanding void. Beyond them lie countless others, moving away so swiftly that their signals will never arrive. The observable sphere is not all of reality. It is simply all that can ever be in causal contact with us. The cosmic microwave background, or CMB, is often called the oldest light we can see. And, in a sense, it forms the deepest wall of our lantern's glow. It is the afterglow of the Big Bang, the faint microwave radiation that fills the sky in every direction. When we detect it, we are seeing light released when the universe was only about 380,000 years old, when it first became transparent to radiation. Before that epoch, the universe was a hot, dense plasma that scattered photons like fog, blocking any direct view of earlier times. The CMB is not a material wall. It is the fossil light from a moment when the young cosmos unveiled itself. Even so, we know there was more before that curtain of light. Theories of cosmic inflation propose that in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, the universe underwent an almost inconceivable burst of rapid expansion, stretching space by unimaginable factors. That brief inflationary moment set the seeds for all the large-scale structures we see today: galaxies, clusters, cosmic webs. The CMB carries tiny fluctuations, faint ripples in its temperature, which map the imprints of those primordial seeds. When we study it, we are studying the very blueprint of the cosmic landscape. The thought that we can look back nearly 14 billion years, almost to the birth of time, and still face an opaque wall is both humbling and thrilling. The horizon we see is not the horizon of being itself. Beyond that ancient light lie regions we may never touch or observe, perhaps infinitely many. Some may resemble our own patch of cosmos. Others may be radically different. We cannot know. We are like fish living near the lantern's glow in a dark ocean, sensing ripples from unseen depths. This realization delivers a second paradox. As we improve our instruments, building ever more powerful telescopes, detecting fainter and fainter galaxies, we do not necessarily extend our reach further into space's true expanse. We mostly fill in the details of the nearby cosmic web. The ultimate horizon, the limit set by the finite age and expansion of the universe, cannot be pushed back by better technology. We can map the lantern's circle more finely, but we cannot expand the lantern's light into the infinite dark. And yet, we persist. We launch probes, design next-generation observatories, analyze ancient starlight with increasing precision. We strive to infer what lies beyond the observable sphere by studying the patterns within it, as ancient sailors once deduced the shape of unseen continents from the drift of sea currents and the flight of birds. The cosmic microwave background gives us our first and oldest map. The distribution of galaxies, the web of dark matter revealed by their gravitational lensing, and the fingerprints of dark energy in the accelerated expansion give us further clues. Perhaps the most startling statistic is that all the luminous matter we see, stars, nebulae, galaxies, accounts for only about 4% of the universe's total content. The rest is dark matter, which shapes cosmic structures through gravity yet emits no light, and dark energy, an enigmatic force driving the expansion itself. Our lantern reveals only a small fraction of what is out there. This makes our maps less like portraits and more like sketches drawn in fog. Even in that fog, patterns emerge. We see that galaxies are not scattered randomly, but lie along great filaments and walls, separated by vast cosmic voids. We can trace the distribution of these structures out to billions of light-years, and their large-scale arrangement agrees with the predictions of the inflationary model. This consistency suggests that the unseen regions beyond our horizon are likely made of similar cosmic stuff, extending the familiar web far into the unknown. But this remains an inference, a grand extrapolation beyond the lantern's glow. Standing before these facts, we feel both empowered and diminished. Empowered because we can understand so much from so little, reading the history of creation from faint light across billions of years. Diminished because even this grandeur is but a drop in a possibly infinite ocean. The horizon that defines the observable universe is not the edge of reality. It is the edge of our participation in it. Imagine again that dark field with your lantern. The light does not reach the end of the field. It simply fades into the distance. You know, in some intuitive way, that the field extends beyond the circle you can see. Perhaps it goes on without limit. Perhaps there is a forest or a cliff out there, but you cannot know by looking. The observable universe is just like that, a finite sphere defined by the reach of light and time, not by any cosmic boundary. Beyond it, whatever lies there, whether endless repetition or startling difference, remains hidden, unreachable, yet compelling in its mystery. This is what it means to map the infinite. We draw charts of galaxies as sailors once charted coasts. We map the glow of the CMB as if it were the oldest shoreline. We trace the faint tug of dark matter as if it were the current beneath the sea. But all our maps describe only the small lit volume of a far greater realm. They tell us that we live in a universe whose boundaries are made not of walls, but of time and expansion, and that the real beyond is not a line we can cross, but a horizon we can never overtake. We are accustomed to thinking of space as a vast container, an invisible stage stretching in every direction. For centuries, philosophers and scientists imagined the universe as a kind of box, perhaps infinite, but still embedded in some larger emptiness. When we stand beneath the stars, our intuition whispers that they must hang in some ultimate void, and that void must have an outside. But Einstein shattered that picture. In his vision, space is not a backdrop. It is a living fabric. It is the thing that stretches, curves, vibrates under the weight of matter and energy. It is not inside anything else. The first shock of this idea comes from the simple realization that the laws of physics do not need a container. Before general relativity, we imagined particles moving against the fixed grid of space, as if dots on a sheet of graph paper. Einstein replaced the paper itself with a flexible sheet of rubber that could sag and ripple. Space and time are woven together into a single continuum, and gravity is not a mysterious force pulling objects, but the geometry of that continuum telling them how to move. The Earth orbits the Sun not because it is being yanked by an invisible tether, but because the Sun's mass warps the space-time around it, bending the Earth's straightest possible path into a wide circle. But the deeper shock is this: if space is the fabric, what is it woven into? We can picture a rubber sheet only because we imagine it lying on a table or stretched in a frame. We picture the balloon surface only because we know it is inflated in air. If we take away the frame and the air, our minds stumble. How can there be a fabric with no loom? a surface with no surrounding space. Our senses evolved to navigate caves and rivers, not to imagine self-contained geometries. Consider the traveler who sets out to find the edge of Earth. He walks westward across plains and mountains, sails across oceans, marches across continents. At last, after years of wandering, he returns to his starting point. He has circled the planet without ever finding a border. The world is finite in area, but has no edge. Its curvature is what makes it so. General relativity allows for the same possibility in three-dimensional space. The universe could be finite in volume, yet unbounded, curving back on itself so that a traveler going ever outward would eventually return home without ever crossing a boundary. This thought creates a strange blend of comfort and dread. It reassures us to think there may be no infinite emptiness to face, no bottomless abyss at the edge. But it unsettles us to realize there is no wall to lean against either. The universe may be like a vast ocean whose surface is continuous, no beaches at its farthest reaches, only more water curving endlessly. Our intuition still tries to picture that ocean floating in something, air, void, a higher dimension, but the mathematics of relativity does not require any such surrounding. The geometry is self-contained. Einstein himself struggled with this leap of imagination. In 1917, when he first applied general relativity to the cosmos as a whole, he found that his equations allowed for a finite but unbounded universe, one with the geometry of a three-dimensional sphere. Not a sphere in space, but a three-dimensional analog of a spherical surface. We cannot visualize such a thing directly, but we can understand it by analogy. Just as the two-dimensional surface of a balloon has no edges, yet encloses a finite area, three-dimensional space could curve back on itself without needing an outside to curve into. The balloon analogy helps, but also misleads. We can point to the outside of a balloon because we live in three dimensions. We can see the rubber surface bending into a higher space. But that higher space is not part of the analogy. It is only in our imaginations. For the balloon creatures who live on the two-dimensional surface, there is no above or below, only the curved surface itself. Similarly, if our universe is curved like a three-sphere, we do not need a higher dimensional void for it to reside in. The curvature is intrinsic. Like the way triangles on a sphere add up to more than 180 degrees, even without drawing them in a larger space. This concept, intrinsic curvature, liberates us from the need for an external frame. We can measure the geometry of space by observing how light rays bend, how galaxies cluster, how cosmic expansion behaves. All these tests tell us about the curvature without referring to anything outside the universe. The fabric defines its own shape. Yet for most of us, the intuition that there must be an outside is stubborn. It is bound up with the way our minds evolved. Our ancestors survived by imagining the other side of the hill, by mapping caves and valleys. Every place we have ever known was in some larger place. The notion that all of space might be all there is, that it has no beyond, conflicts with that deep ancestral instinct. It feels as strange as the idea of an endless loop of time, or the idea that empty space can bend and stretch. There is another paradox here. A universe that is finite and curved back on itself might still feel infinite to its inhabitants. Imagine an ant crawling on the surface of a basketball. To the ant, The horizon never ends. It could march in any direction forever, never finding an edge, never suspecting that the total surface area is limited. Similarly, if we live in a finite but unbounded universe, we could sail across galaxies without end, never realizing that we were, in some higher geometric sense, going in circles. The limit would be there, but hidden by the lack of edges. Could we ever detect such curvature? Cosmologists have tried. They have measured the angles of giant triangles drawn by the patterns in the cosmic microwave background, as sailors once gauged the shape of Earth by watching ships vanish over the horizon. The current measurements suggest that, on the largest scales we can see, space is remarkably flat. If it does curve back on itself, the radius of that curvature must be far larger than the part of the universe we can observe. For now, our cosmic ocean appears endless, though it may yet turn out to be the surface of an enormous sphere. This scientific subtlety deepens the philosophical puzzle. We might live in a cosmos with no outside and no boundary, yet also with a total size, a total volume. We could measure that volume only by exploring the entire universe, but by the nature of expansion and cosmic horizons, we can never reach beyond our observable sphere. We live in partial knowledge, like fish that cannot leave their pond to discover whether it is a lake or an entire sea. The tension between finite and unbounded reflects a deeper tension in our quest for meaning. If there is no edge, we cannot speak of a place beyond which the universe ceases. If there is no outside, we cannot imagine where the universe itself resides. We are forced to confront the possibility that where is not a question that applies beyond the fabric of space-time. And that realization invites both awe and a kind of vertigo. Our language and our thoughts were forged for rivers and caves. They falter when we ask what lies beyond everything. In moments of reflection, one senses how radical Einstein's insight was: to turn gravity into geometry, to turn space itself into an actor in the cosmic drama. The stage is not fixed. It stretches, flexes, can even possess a total curvature. It has no need of a surrounding box. This insight unmoors us from centuries of intuitive thinking. It asks us to live without the comfort of edges, to accept that the world may be complete in itself. Picture a ripple traveling across a drumhead. The ripple does not move through air or into deeper layers of material. It moves through the drumhead itself, a disturbance in the very medium that sustains it. Matter and light in our universe are like that ripple, tracing their paths on the fabric of space-time. To ask what lies beyond is to ask what lies beyond the drumhead's skin, an irrelevant question if the skin is all there is. This is the challenge Einstein left us: to recognize that the universe may not be set within anything else, to accept that its geometry may be closed on itself or extend without limit, without any need for a frame. It is not an easy idea to internalize. Our intuitions resist it. They crave the final wall, the ultimate shore. But the lesson of science so far is that the farther we look, the more we see continuity where we expected boundaries. Perhaps that is the deepest philosophical shift of modern cosmology. We are no longer inhabitants of a small walled garden in a surrounding void. We are wanderers in a self-sufficient expanse. Whether that expanse is infinite or loops back on itself, it has no edge for us to fall off, no outside realm into which it sits like a pearl in a shell. The fabric of space-time is the whole of physical reality as far as we can tell. And so the question, what lies beyond space, may turn out to be like asking what lies north of the North Pole. It is a question born of imagination, not of the structure of the world. This realization is not the end of wonder. It is the beginning of a subtler awe, for it means that the ultimate mystery is not hidden behind some distant wall, but is woven into the very medium in which we exist. We sail a boundless sea, or perhaps a curved one with no shore, and that sea is itself the only place there is. There is something haunting about a horizon. It promises a boundary, yet each step toward it only pushes it farther away. On the open sea, the horizon recedes endlessly, and we accept that the curve of Earth hides new waters from our view. But in the cosmos, the horizon is not a trick of geometry alone. It is the result of light itself running out of time to reach us. Beyond that shimmering boundary, the universe continues, but in ways we can only imagine. And the most astonishing possibility is that what lies beyond may not merely be more of the same universe we know, but other realms altogether. The idea that our cosmos might be one patch in a much vaster whole arises from the story of its earliest moment. According to the theory of cosmic inflation, the universe we inhabit is the product of a brief, violent stretching of space itself. In less than a trillionth of a second after the Big Bang, the young universe expanded at a rate far exceeding even the speed of light, smoothing itself and seeding the tiny fluctuations that later grew into galaxies. Inflation elegantly explains the near uniformity of the cosmos we see, but it also has a startling implication. In many versions of the theory, inflation does not end everywhere at once. Instead, it continues in distant regions, endlessly spawning new bubbles of space, where expansion slows and ordinary physics begins. Our observable universe would then be just one such bubble, like a single soap bubble forming in an infinite froth of other bubbles. Each may have its own laws of physics, its own mixture of matter, perhaps even its own number of spatial dimensions. Some may collapse quickly, others may grow vast and empty, and a few may nurture stars, galaxies, and perhaps life. This vision, often called eternal inflation, replaces the comforting idea of a single all-encompassing cosmos with a restless sea of universes, each born from the same underlying process, yet forever cut off from the others. At first glance, this picture seems to answer the longing for an outside. We imagine our universe as a bubble expanding into a greater void, bumping against other bubbles. But the reality is more subtle. The bubble is not expanding into a pre-existing space. Its growth is the creation of new space. The inflationary sea is not a higher dimensional room with a floor and walls. It is more like a boundless process, an endless flowering of space-time itself. To ask what lies outside, it all is to ask, once again, a question that presupposes a container. The multiverse concept forces us to confront an even more disquieting thought. Most of it may be forever beyond any possible contact with us. If the inflationary sea is still bubbling elsewhere, the space between our bubble and its neighbors is itself inflating faster than light. No signal, no probe, no future technology could ever cross that gulf. The boundaries of our observable universe are not the limits of reality, but the limits of causality. There are regions whose existence we might infer but never confirm, as they recede forever beyond our reach. This brings us to the notion of cosmic variance, the recognition that the universe we observe may not be a perfect sample of the whole. We look at the cosmic microwave background and see a nearly uniform glow with slight ripples. We measure the distribution of galaxies and find a large-scale web. We infer laws of physics that seem universal, yet all these inferences are drawn from a single observable patch. If the universe is infinite, or if the multiverse exists, there may be vast domains where the distribution of matter or even the very constants of nature differ. Our corner of reality may not be typical at all, but we can never step outside it to compare. This limitation is both scientific and philosophical. In science, we seek patterns that hold everywhere, principles that transcend place and time. But if there are countless other realms beyond our horizon, each with its own rules, then our quest for universal laws may reach a natural limit. The word universe itself, once meant to describe all that exists, becomes parochial, referring only to our particular bubble of order and history. Beyond it may be an infinite quilt of other bubbles, each telling its own story, and there may be no final map that stitches them all together. The idea of such a quilt provokes awe, but also a certain dread. For centuries we dreamed of finding the last frontier, the ultimate edge where questions of what lies beyond would finally end. But an infinite quilt offers no such finality. There is no cosmic shore to reach, no ultimate wall against which we can lean. Instead, there is an unending hierarchy of horizons, each enclosing its own small domain of knowable truth. The longing for a complete and final description of reality may itself be an artifact of our finite perspective. To grasp the strangeness of this situation, imagine standing on the shore at night. You see a horizon line where the dark ocean meets the darker sky. You know that horizon is not a barrier, yet it defines the limits of your perception. Now imagine that beyond that horizon lie not merely distant waters, but other oceans with different compositions, even oceans obeying different laws of physics, and that the space between you and them is stretching so fast you could never sail there. That is the challenge posed by the multiverse. It replaces the dream of a single vast ocean with an archipelago of unreachable seas. Some physicists, though, question whether the multiverse is a scientific concept at all. They argue that if we can never observe or interact with these other bubbles, they may belong more to metaphysics than to physics. A hypothesis that cannot be tested may not be falsifiable and thus may lie outside the scope of empirical science. Others respond that the multiverse is not a separate idea, but a consequence of inflationary models that do explain observable phenomena, like the patterns in the cosmic microwave background. If inflation is true, they say, the multiverse may be unavoidable. These debates remind us that our reach as observers is inherently limited. The horizon we see is a horizon not just of distance, but of epistemology, of what can be known. Even if we can infer that other regions exist, we may never measure them directly. This limitation can be unsettling, especially to a species that has made its greatest advances by pushing past horizons, sailing oceans, crossing continents, sending probes beyond the solar system. It challenges our faith that every mystery can be solved if we only look far enough. Yet there is a strange solace in this recognition, for it means that mystery is not merely a temporary gap in knowledge, but an intrinsic feature of reality as we inhabit it. There will always be a beyond that lies outside our lantern's glow, not because we lack the right tools, but because the structure of space-time itself draws a line we cannot cross. Beyond that line, speculation must take the place of observation, and wonder becomes as essential as measurement. Some of these speculations reach even farther than the inflationary multiverse. Certain versions of string theory suggest that our observable universe could be a three-dimensional brain floating in a higher dimensional space, like a soap film drifting on an unseen wind. In that picture, other brains, other universes, might drift parallel to ours, occasionally colliding and perhaps triggering events like our own Big Bang. Other ideas propose that quantum fluctuations constantly spawn baby universes, each budding off with its own arrow of time. These notions remain highly conjectural, yet they illustrate the richness of possibilities our current theories allow. But again, these possibilities do not restore the old idea of a simple outside. A brain world does not sit in an ordinary void, but in a higher dimensional structure, whose own nature remains mysterious. A baby universe budding from a quantum fluctuation does not burst into an external space, but creates its own space-time as it expands. Each hypothesis shifts the question of the beyond to a deeper level, never quite giving us the enclosing wall we crave. If anything, these ideas deepen the philosophical challenge. They suggest that reality may be fundamentally layered or branching, without a single overarching space in which all things reside. The yearning for a single map with a single boundary may be as misguided as the medieval yearning for an ocean's edge. Instead, we may have to accept a patchwork cosmos, each region or bubble self-contained, sharing perhaps only the underlying mathematical rules of quantum fields, or something even more abstract. In the face of such speculation, humility becomes as important as imagination. We must remember that every hypothesis about the regions beyond our horizon rests on extrapolating from the tiny portion we can observe. We know that space expands, that the observable sphere is finite, that inflation once happened. Beyond that, we infer, we guess, we dream. Some of our dreams may prove true in ways we cannot yet test. Others may dissolve as our understanding deepens. But the limit of observation is not itself a limit of thought. And so we stand at the edge of the knowable, gazing at a horizon that is not a wall, but a shimmering veil of time. We see the last scattering of light from when the universe became transparent. We measure the clustering of galaxies and infer what shaped them. We speculate about realms that no light from them will ever touch us. We know that our map will always be incomplete, yet we keep drawing it. There is a peculiar beauty in this situation. The cosmos we can observe is vast enough to fill our minds with wonder, yet it may be only one thread in a tapestry that stretches beyond imagination. We can contemplate that tapestry even if we will never weave a full picture of it. The horizon's retreat does not end our search. It gives it depth, like the infinite sea meeting the infinite sky. Perhaps this is the ultimate lesson of the beyond, that our desire for finality, the last frontier, the ultimate edge, is itself a product of living in a finite body on a finite world. The universe, or the multiverse, may offer no such endpoint. Instead, it offers an unending invitation to imagine, to theorize, to explore in mind, if not in journey. The absence of a cosmic wall does not diminish the mystery. It enlarges it, turning every answer into a new question. And so we continue, like sailors staring at a glowing horizon that always retreats as we advance, aware that the ocean may give way to other seas, or to an infinite froth of bubbles whose shores we will never reach. We live within a single lantern's glow in the dark, yet we suspect the darkness holds uncounted other lights. To know that, even without ever seeing them, is to glimpse the profound depth of the reality that cradles us. For as long as we have been capable of wonder, we have tried to draw a line around reality. We crave borders, shorelines where land meets sea, horizons where sea meets sky, walls where civilization meets wilderness. Our survival as a species depended on noticing boundaries, the edge of the cliff, the rim of the forest, the mouth of the cave. To this day, our eyes are drawn to contours and our minds to categories. We divide the world into inside and outside because we evolved to navigate a world of edges. That deep habit of thought has followed us from the savannah into the stars. And so, when we ask about the universe, we instinctively picture it as a kind of container. We imagine it floating in a black void, as though all the galaxies were beads in a glass sphere. And we want to know what lies outside the glass. This picture feels natural, almost inevitable, yet it may be entirely wrong. Modern physics tells us that space itself is not a thing within a larger thing. It is the framework of all places, not a place among others. To ask what lies beyond it is to misuse the very idea of place. This is not an easy notion to accept. The philosopher Immanuel Kant argued that space and time are not properties of the world as it is in itself, but forms of our perception, structures the human mind imposes in order to make sense of experience. Our brains expect the world to have spatial relations. We cannot help but imagine that anything that exists must exist somewhere. The idea of nowhere that is still something is alien to us. This cognitive reflex makes us persist in asking what lies outside space, even when the question may not be meaningful. In the same way that a fish might try to imagine what lies beyond water, we try to imagine what lies beyond space. The fish cannot conceive of dryness until it is lifted from the sea. To it, water is the background of all experience. Space is our water. Every perception, every movement, every thought is framed by it. The notion of a beyond requires a reference point we do not possess. Cognitive scientists point out that our brains are engines of prediction. We survive by anticipating what comes next, what lies beyond the edge of vision. When we face a horizon, we expect more land or sea to lie past it. That expectation works for navigating a planet, but it may mislead us when we try to navigate reality as a whole. We project our terrestrial habits onto the cosmos, drawing imaginary lines and asking what lies on the far side. This projection can even shape our philosophy. Aristotle imagined the universe as a series of nested spheres, each enclosing the other. Medieval thinkers placed the stars on a crystalline shell and God beyond it. Even after science shattered those shells, the yearning for an ultimate outside persisted. The very word universe comes from the idea of the one whole that contains everything, implying that it, too, must be contained. But if there is truly only one fabric of space-time, the idea of containment itself may be misplaced. Einstein's theory of general relativity showed that space and time are not a neutral stage, but part of the play. They can stretch, curve, and ripple. They can have a total shape without needing an exterior. In this sense, space is not inside anything at all. It is the arena where the very notions of inside and outside arise. To ask what lies outside it is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The question is framed in terms that cease to apply. This insight can feel liberating or disorienting. Some philosophers have welcomed it as a sign that our deepest intuitions are not infallible, that we must reshape our concepts to match the world, not the other way around. Others have felt an existential vertigo, as if the loss of an outside meant the loss of ultimate context. The writer Blaise Pascal, contemplating the infinite spaces beyond the visible stars, spoke of the eternal silence that terrified him. If even that silence is not a surrounding void, but simply the extension of space itself, we may feel even more adrift. Yet perhaps the sense of adriftness comes not from the nature of the universe, but from our refusal to let go of certain mental habits. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once remarked that many philosophical puzzles arise from the misuse of language, asking questions as if they belong to one category when they belong to another. What is beyond space? Maybe just such a question. We ask it as if space were a country with a border, when in fact it is the framework in which all borders appear. There is a profound shift in perspective when we accept that outside may be a conceptual mirage. We begin to see that the mystery lies not at the universe's perimeter, but in its very being. Instead of imagining ourselves as observers peering through the walls of a cosmic room, we recognize that we are participants in the single, seamless fabric that has no walls at all. And yet, the habit of seeking a beyond persists. We hear that the observable universe is finite in size and immediately ask what is beyond it. We learn that the cosmos may be spatially infinite and still ask what it expands into. These questions arise as naturally as breathing, a sign of how deeply rooted the inside-outside dichotomy is in our minds. To live with this paradox is to live at the crossroads of science and philosophy. Physics can describe how space behaves, how it curves and stretches, how it shapes the motion of galaxies and the passage of time. But it cannot tell us why the human imagination keeps conjuring an outside. That question belongs to the study of the mind itself. The more we understand about the brain, the more we see that perception is not a passive window but an active construction. Our senses provide data, but our minds assemble it into patterns that made sense for survival. Patterns that highlight edges, contrasts, boundaries. The concept of beyond is an extrapolation of that pattern-seeking faculty. It may be useful for finding food beyond the hill, but not for probing what lies beyond the totality of space-time. In this light, the question, is there literally nothing beyond space? Or is nothing itself something? Reveals itself as a tangle of language. When we speak of nothing, we are already treating it as a kind of something, an empty room, a void. But if space itself defines the framework in which places can be named, then to be beyond space is not to be in an empty place, but to be nowhere at all. And nowhere is not a location. This realization can be unsettling. We like our mysteries to be like hidden treasure, still a thing, still somewhere, waiting to be found. To be told that the mystery may be a mirage of our cognitive habits feels almost like a loss. Yet there is also a strange kind of awe in this recognition. It tells us that the limits we sense may be limits not of reality, but of the patterns by which we think. Such awe was expressed by Baruch Spinoza, who envisioned the universe as a single self-sustaining substance, of which all things are modes. In his view, To ask what lies beyond nature was to misunderstand the nature of nature itself. Later, the physicist John Archibald Wheeler captured something similar when he said, "Space tells matter how to move. Matter tells space how to curve." There is no backdrop beyond this mutual dance. Perhaps the most humbling lesson of modern cosmology is that the greatest illusion is not what we see in the sky, but what we imagine behind it. We picture a cosmic sphere surrounded by darkness because our minds have evolved to picture edges. We invent an outside because we have always lived inside something, a house, a forest, a world. But reality, as far as we can tell, does not oblige that image. If we can learn to set aside that mental picture, even briefly, we may find a deeper wonder. The universe needs no frame to hold it up. Space is not contained within anything else. It is the condition that makes all containers possible. Beyond it lies neither emptiness nor fullness, but the dissolution of the very question. A compass at the North Pole spins because all directions lead south. The question, which way is further north, has no answer because it rests on a false premise. The same may be true of the question, what lies outside space? It points in a direction that does not exist. Recognizing this does not diminish the mystery. It deepens it, for it shifts our attention from distant borders to the nature of the fabric itself. It invites us to ponder why there is something rather than nothing, why the laws of physics take the form they do, why there is a stage for galaxies to arise at all. These are questions still beyond our grasp, but they are different from the old quest for a physical wall at the edge of everything. Perhaps one day our descendants will see as plainly as we now see that Earth is round, that the universe is not in anything. Perhaps they will marvel at how long it took us to let go of the illusion of outside. Or perhaps they, too, will feel the pull of that ancient instinct, for it is woven deep in the fabric of the mind. We may never escape that instinct entirely, but we can learn to see it for what it is, a habit of thought, not a truth about the world. In doing so, we take a small step toward seeing the universe as it is, not a pearl in a shell, but the whole ocean, the water and the waves together, without a surrounding shore. When we first realized that the universe might have no edge, no enclosing shell, we did not merely redraw our maps of the heavens, we redrew the boundaries of meaning itself. A world with a wall can be imagined as a walled garden, tended perhaps by divine hands or ruled by forces beyond it. But a universe without an outside is a different kind of place, one that resists final explanations. It invites us to search not for an ending point, but for a way of being at home within endlessness. For most of human history, we imagine the cosmos as a layered, ordered structure. The sky was a dome. The stars were lights fixed on its inner surface. And beyond that dome lay the realm of gods, or the void of non-existence. This picture offered a kind of narrative closure. There was an up and a down, an inside and an outside. Our lives were framed by that cosmic architecture, and meaning could be tied to a sense of position. Earth below, heaven above. When astronomy shattered that framework, it also fractured some of the old certainties. The Copernican revolution displaced Earth from the center. Galileo's telescope showed a starry expanse without a dome, and Newton's laws described a cosmos bound together by forces that required no enclosing wall. The vastness that once belonged to divinity now belonged to space itself. The realization was liberating and unsettling. If there was no outside, then the universe itself was the whole story. and we had to find our place within it. Every culture has wrestled with this shift. In the Renaissance, the discovery of an infinite or at least unbounded universe inspired both awe and anxiety. The poet Giordano Bruno spoke of innumerable suns and innumerable earths, seeing in their multiplicity the grandeur of creation. The philosopher Blaise Pascal, contemplating the same immensity, felt the eternal silence of these infinite spaces as a source of dread. The same vision that opened new horizons also dissolved the comforting sense of a defined enclosure. Religions, too, adapted in diverse ways. Some emphasized the boundlessness of the divine itself, seeing the infinite cosmos as a more fitting stage for infinite grace. Others clung to older images of layered heavens, or a final realm beyond the stars, insisting that meaning required a transcendent outside. The dialogue between faith and science across centuries often turned on this question. Does a boundless universe deepen or diminish the sacred? Artists gave the question shape in paint and music. 17th-century landscape painters began to depict skies that receded without limit, suggesting the vastness of nature. In the Romantic era, poets like Shelley and Wordsworth celebrated the sublime, an experience of grandeur so vast it mingled wonder with fear. Later, the Impressionists and the Symbolists sought to capture not a bounded world, but the play of light and mood in an open one. Art became a means of navigating the psychological space between awe and insignificance. In the modern age, existentialist philosophers confronted the implications more directly. Jean-Paul Sartre described a world without intrinsic purpose, in which meaning must be created by human choice. Albert Camus wrote of the absurd, the tension between our hunger for order and the universe's apparent indifference. Both rejected the search for meaning in some transcendent outside. They urged us to find it in our finite lives, in the act of choosing and living. The boundless cosmos became not a prison, but a challenge to authenticity. And yet, the human desire for edges, for closure, persists. We seek final theories, ultimate explanations, even in our art and literature. We tell stories with beginnings and endings because we live in bodies that are born and die. The edge is a metaphor for completion. In a universe with no edge, we feel suspended in a story without a last chapter. Some find this unbearable. Others find it liberating. Perhaps liberation lies in seeing that the absence of a boundary does not mean the absence of significance. A drop of water merging into the ocean does not lose its reality. It becomes part of a vaster whole. We, too, are not separate from the boundless cosmos. We are modes of it, patterns of matter and consciousness through which the universe knows itself. To recognize this is to find a different kind of belonging, one not anchored in edges, but in participation. This insight has emerged not only in philosophy, but also in science. The late physicist Carl Sagan often reminded us that we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. To him, the vastness of space was not a reason for despair, but a call to curiosity. The lack of an outside freed us from provincial illusions, placing us in a continuous story of cosmic evolution. Each discovery pushed the horizon back, and each step revealed that we were more deeply a part of the universe than we had imagined. Such a perspective shifts the focus of meaning from destination to journey. If there is no final edge to reach, then the worth of our exploration lies in the exploration itself. The horizon becomes not a barrier but an invitation. The meaning of a boundless universe is not given from beyond. It is created in the ongoing act of discovery, in the questions we ask and the answers we attempt. History shows that our sense of meaning has always expanded with our maps. Ancient tribes traced their stories to the river valleys they knew. Medieval thinkers drew their morals from a universe of crystalline spheres. Modern humanity faces a cosmos whose boundaries, if it has them, lie forever beyond our reach. At each stage, the challenge has been to see our lives not as diminished by a larger context, but as enriched by it. Even in literature, the theme recurs. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke urged us to live the questions rather than demand final answers. The astronomer-poet Rebecca Elson wrote of the mathematics of the sky as a source of both wonder and humility. These voices suggest that in an open cosmos, meaning is not a fixed point, but a horizon we approach by understanding. To stand beneath a night sky unframed by walls is to feel both fragile and expanded. The dark above us is not empty, but alive with distant suns, each a story unfolding beyond our reach. The thought that there is no enclosing outside can evoke dread, an infinite abyss or hope, an infinite field of possibility. The choice of which feeling to embrace is itself part of how we create meaning. We might say that in a boundless universe, understanding becomes the new frontier. There is no final shore to touch, but there is always another question to pursue, another pattern to discern. Our purpose shifts from seeking a boundary to deepening our comprehension of the fabric we inhabit. In that sense, knowledge becomes a form of belonging. There is also a moral dimension to this realization. If we are not creatures trapped in a small walled garden, but participants in a single vast continuum, then our responsibilities extend beyond our immediate tribe or nation. We share a common fate on this fragile planet adrift in a boundless sea. The absence of an outside can awaken a sense of solidarity, reminding us that our divisions are local and our home is shared. In the face of infinity, some feel insignificant, but others see a call to stewardship. The universe may not have a final purpose inscribed in its fabric, yet we can shape purpose in how we care for one another and for the tiny world that cradles us. The boundlessness of the cosmos need not leave us adrift. It can invite us to anchor meaning in the relationships and choices that give texture to our finite lives. The open cosmos also invites a kind of humility rare in earlier ages. If there is no cosmic wall, no privileged vantage outside the whole, then all viewpoints, including our own, are partial. This humility can temper both dogmatism and despair. It reminds us that the quest for meaning is itself a creative act, unfolding within the universe's great unfolding. Perhaps this is why so many who devote their lives to studying the cosmos speak not only in equations, but also in reverent tones. To map the galaxies, or trace the first seconds after the Big Bang is not merely to collect data. It is to participate in a dialogue with something larger than ourselves. The absence of an edge does not silence that dialogue, it makes it endless. In the end, the question of meaning in a boundless universe may come down to how we hold the tension between two truths: that we are small and finite, and that we are part of something immeasurably vast. The lack of a surrounding frame means that no external authority grants purpose, yet it also means that nothing limits the horizons of curiosity and compassion. Imagine a lone figure standing on a high ridge at night. looking up at the Milky Way stretched across the darkness. There is no enclosing dome, no wall to stop the gaze. That openness can feel cold and impersonal, or it can feel like an invitation to belonging without borders. The meaning we make is the bridge between these responses. In a universe with no beyond, the horizon that matters is not a physical one, but the horizon of understanding. We will never draw the final map, never reach a last frontier, but we can continue to expand the circle of knowledge, of empathy, of wonder. The search itself becomes a kind of purpose. Perhaps that is the gift of a cosmos without an outside. It leaves room for us to grow into it. Our stories need not be confined by walls. They can unfold as long as there are minds to tell them and ears to listen. Meaning in such a universe is not diminished by the absence of a boundary. It is magnified by the openness, because it depends not on what contains us, but on how we choose to live within the boundless. We began with a question so simple, it seemed almost childlike. If space goes on forever, where does it end? We imagined a wall, a shore, a dark frontier just beyond the farthest galaxy. We set out to find it, with eyes, with telescopes, with mathematics. Yet the farther we pushed the horizon, the more it retreated. Instead of discovering an edge, we discovered the impossibility of an edge. The search led us not to the border of space, but to the border of our own imagination. It is a curious kind of progress. We have mapped the sky with exquisite precision. We can tell the story of the first seconds after the Big Bang. We can weigh invisible matter and measure the slow acceleration of cosmic expansion. Yet the very success of these achievements reminds us that every horizon is temporary. Beyond the farthest galaxies lies more space, perhaps curved back on itself, perhaps stretching without end, perhaps budding into other realms beyond all observation. We have not reached a final answer, but a deeper, more nuanced question. This realization marks a shift in how we think about mystery. In ancient times, mystery was often seen as a wall, a limit imposed by gods or fate. To approach it was to risk punishment or madness. In the modern age, mystery has become a frontier, something to be explored, a challenge to understanding. But now we face a subtler recognition. Some mysteries may be inherent not in nature's refusal to reveal itself, but in the very structure of knowledge. To ask what lies outside space may be to ask a question that dissolves when properly understood. We can chart the horizon of what can be observed, but to speak of a beyond may be to misuse the idea of place. This does not render the question meaningless. It renders it profound. The paradox that launched our journey, trying to find an outside to everything, turns out to be a mirror. It reflects the limits of thought as much as the nature of the cosmos. We find that the edge we were seeking lies not in the sky, but at the boundary between intuition and reality. In confronting it, we learn as much about ourselves as about the universe. That realization can be both humbling and inspiring. Humbling, because it reminds us that our minds evolved for survival on a small planet, not for grasping the full architecture of being. Inspiring, because it shows that imagination itself is boundless enough to reach for what lies beyond its grasp. The quest for the edge of space has revealed a deeper horizon, the horizon of understanding, which moves outward as we move toward it. We stand today at another such horizon. Our instruments now can detect light from galaxies only a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. The new generation of telescopes peers deeper into the cosmic past, mapping the first sparks of structure. Physicists probe the earliest instance of expansion, searching for clues in the ripples of the cosmic microwave background. Others seek a theory that unites general relativity with quantum mechanics, hoping to explain the nature of space-time itself. These are genuine frontiers, where knowledge grows by experiment and observation. They remind us that the boundless universe is not an abstraction, but a real, unfolding story. And yet even these efforts circle back to the same paradox. The better we understand the origin of space and time, the clearer it becomes that asking what came before, or what lies outside, may not be the right kind of question. We may discover, as Einstein and later cosmologists have suggested, that space and time themselves are emergent, like the surface of a sea that hides deeper layers of reality. To speak of an outside to space could be as misguided as speaking of an edge to a melody. The music is in the notes themselves. There is no place beyond it where the tune resides. If this seems abstract, consider the effect it has on our sense of purpose. We once looked to the heavens for a ceiling and a throne, a final authority outside the world. Now we see that there may be no such outside, only the vast fabric of being, with its galaxies and voids, its laws and symmetries. That shift does not diminish the grandeur of the cosmos. It magnifies it, for it means that the stage on which we play our small part is not an object in some larger chamber, but the whole of physical reality itself. The absence of a final wall also reshapes our imagination of the future. There may be no last shore to reach, no ultimate map to draw, but there will always be new patterns to discover, new relationships to understand, new meanings to weave from what we learn. The mystery that once frightened us, an endless void beyond the stars, has become an invitation to expand our circle of comprehension, to refine our questions, to live in curiosity rather than in closure. Perhaps this is what the philosopher William James meant when he spoke of the ever not quite. Each step toward knowledge opens new questions. The universe's lack of an outside does not signal the end of inquiry, but the refusal of inquiry ever to be finished. In this sense, we are as infinite as the cosmos we seek to know, for our capacity to wonder has no final boundary. There is a gentle wisdom in recognizing this. We need not despair at never seeing the whole. We can rejoice in being part of the story of discovery itself. The universe has no edge. Neither does our desire to understand. Each generation passes the torch of curiosity forward, and in that continuity lies a kind of meaning deeper than any fixed answer. Imagine now the closing vision, a camera pulling back from Earth, past the moon and planets, past the world arms of the Milky Way, past clusters of galaxies, past the foamy filaments of the cosmic web, farther still until the light itself grows thin and the scene fades to black. There is no wall, no enclosing sphere, only the fading of what light can reach our eyes. Somewhere beyond, more galaxies drift unseen, and perhaps other realms altogether. The darkness is not a border, but a promise that there is always more than we have yet imagined. In that vision we can find both humility and hope. We are a fleeting species on a small world, yet our minds can reach for the structure of space-time itself. We cannot stand outside the universe to behold it whole, but we can participate in its unfolding by asking and seeking. The search for the edge of space thus becomes a search for the edges of thought, and those edges keep moving outward as we approach. The story we tell about the cosmos is still being written. Next-generation observatories will capture the faint glow of the first stars. Gravitational wave detectors will listen for ripples from the birth of black holes. Quantum theories will probe the grain of the very fabric of reality. Each new insight will not close the question of the beyond, but deepen it, showing that the horizon of understanding is not a line to be crossed, but a frontier to be pursued. And so we come back to the paradox with which we began, that in seeking the boundary of space, we discover instead the boundlessness of imagination. The question, what lies outside, has no final answer, yet in asking it, we keep enlarging the sphere of what we know. The mystery that once seemed a wall now serves as a window, through which we glimpse not an edge, but an unending expanse. Perhaps the final lesson is that the infinite is not something to be conquered, but to be joined. The cosmos does not need an outside to be complete, and we do not need a final answer to find meaning. By embracing the endless horizon, scientifically, philosophically, and emotionally, we continue the story that began when our ancestors first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. In the silence that follows that wonder, there is a kind of peace. The night sky no longer presses down as a ceiling, but opens outward as a vast field of questions. To live under that sky is to live in the presence of a mystery that does not diminish us, but enlarges us, drawing us forward. The search for the outside has led us to a new understanding, that the only true boundary is the one we imagine, and that the horizon of knowledge is itself the next frontier.